In this video, I'd like to look at soil and talk about my approach to building healthy soil and keeping it healthy. When it comes to something as complex as soil, there are quite a lot of things to consider and it can be very overwhelming. However, the longer I work in horticulture, the more and more convinced I am that we can focus our attention on one main factor, that is, soil structure. That's not to say that soil biology and soil chemistry aren't important, or that other physical characteristics such as texture aren't important either. They're all really important, but if we can focus our efforts on improving our soil structure, the chemical and biological characteristics tend to fall in line too. And as for soil texture, we can't really do too much to change that. We've got what we've got. But whether we've got a heavy clay soil or a free-draining sandy soil, improving the soil structure will enable our soil to hold onto a good amount of both water and air. It will also make it more accepting of heavy rainfall events to make sure that every drop of rain counts. So let's have a look at the soil in our new garden. This is what it looked like when we moved in this spring. And straight away, you can tell that this soil isn't healthy. How? Well, apart from the fact that it's blowing away when I step on it. That's called soil erosion, by the way. There are no plants growing in it. As growers, it's easy to fall into the way of thinking that healthy soil leads to healthy plants. But it's more complex than that. It's more cyclical. Yes, healthy soil does lead to healthy plants, but you can't have healthy soil without plants growing in it. You see, plant roots bind the soil particles into aggregates. This reduces soil erosion, so when you have heavy rain or wind, your soil stays where it's supposed to be, in your garden. Without plant roots, our soil has no structure and can only be held together by compaction. Soil that's held together by compaction holds onto very little air and breaks apart really easily. This causes pore spaces in the soil to become blocked by smaller soil particles, leading to poor drainage and moisture holding capacity. As they grow, plant roots create channels inside the soil aggregates, in which water or air can be stored until it's needed by plants. The same channels allow excess water to flow deeper into the soil profile, where it can be stored. But the plant roots do so much more than just aggregate soil. As the plants grow, their leaves harness energy from the sun's rays. They convert their solar energy into liquid energy, or sugar, which they use to fuel their growth. But they don't use all of it. In fact, they don't use that much at all. Lots of this liquid sugar is secreted by the plant roots into the soil to feed the microorganisms that live there. In exchange for this energy, soil organisms such as bacteria and fungi fulfill a huge range of reciprocal roles, which include making nutrients and water available for plant roots and protecting them from harmful diseases. The plant roots and soil organisms contribute to soil health in a whole load of other ways, but I want to keep this video quite short, so I'm going to have to go into that in more detail in a later video. Let's look above ground for a minute. As plants grow, they shade the soil from the worst of the sun's heat. This reduces evaporation, ensuring that more water is available for plants, even in times of drought. The shade given by plant top growth also prevents the soil temperature from fluctuating too much, which allows the soil biology to carry out all of its roles properly. But even once the plants die down, they carry on improving the health of the soil. Stems and leaves fall to the soil surface, where they carry on insulating it from extremes of temperature, but they also provide protection from compaction. Any impact caused by footfall, machinery, or rain is spread out evenly over the soil surface, ensuring the soil maintains its free draining yet moisture retentive structure. The old plant roots also die and contribute to soil organic matter levels, which in turn increases the water, nutrient, and air holding capacity of your soil. So hopefully you can see that the soil is just as dependent on the plant to be healthy as the plant is for the soil to be healthy. But how do we go about improving the soil structure and reaping all of these other benefits? Well, that's where the principles of regenerative agriculture come in. First, we need to get plants growing in our soil. Sow vegetable seeds in rows, and between the rows, sow low-growing cover crops such as white clover. You might need to keep the cover crops under control by trimming them every few weeks. This will stop them from growing over your cash crops. The goal is to cover all of the soil surface. Try and get to the point where you can't see any soil. Any beds that you're not ready to sow crops in can be sown with a mixture of cover crops, which brings me on to the second principle. Biodiversity is key. Cover crops should contain multiple species of plants from different families. As an example, in spring I planted this bed with wheat, oats, phacelia, crimson clover, radish, and sunflowers. All plants have different root growth characteristics. Some spread fibrous roots along just under the soil surface, while others send a single taproot deep into the soil like a sword. Having a range of species in your cover crop means your entire soil profile will benefit from the activity of plant roots and the microbes that they attract. Let your cover crops grow. The more leaves they produce, the more energy they're bringing into the soil. When you want to start growing cash crops, cut back the cover crops to the soil level and leave the chopped up material on the soil surface. This is the third principle. Leave any dead plant matter on the soil surface. Over a period of months and years, this organic layer will thicken and protect the soil structure from compaction. Plant plugs can be planted straight into the cover crop. Seeds can also be drilled directly into the cover crop. You need to be on the ball to make sure they don't get smothered by the regrowth. The final principle is the easiest to follow. Don't disturb the soil surface. This means no digging and no hoeing. Protect the organic layer, protect the soil structure, and protect the soil biology that lives in the structure that you're developing. By following these easy principles, your soil will develop good structure, which will make it into an ideal home for soil life, ranging from bacteria and fungi up to earthworms and arthropods. Nutrients will become readily available, so you don't have to apply any fertilizer to your soil, and water will be stored alongside air, so you won't need to irrigate even in times of drought. These principles mimic the way the soil has developed naturally for hundreds of millions of years. It's zero input, cheap and easy, so why not give it a go in your own garden?